I was completely confused, but she looked at me excitedly with a smile and said, "Amazing, amazing. James, who are you?" She pulled my hand and showed me a certain screen, making me utter a dumbfounded "Huh?" "My name is James, I'm 30 years old. I've loved books since I was a child, and upon graduating from college, I got hired by a chain bookstore. I was assigned to a bookstore in downtown New York, and my working life began. Living surrounded by books was a lot of fun, and talking to customers about books made me incredibly happy, making me feel like I had found my calling. 5 years into my job, my sales performance was recognized, and I was transferred to the head office. It was a promotion. I've been working at the headquarters for 3 years now, and today, like always, I'm dealing with sales data. One day, my supervisor, Mike, asked me to prepare materials for an important meeting. He wanted me to extract and graph the sales data for a particular regional store. It was clearly data from an underperforming store. "Mike, this is..." I called out to Mike as he walked by and asked him about it. Mike, a slightly good-looking man in his early 40s, scratched the back of his head awkwardly and said, "Oh, we're discussing whether to close that store." "The data doesn't look good," he muttered, peering at my screen. I had actually visited this place once on a trip and had been to this store. It was located in a corner of a rundown shopping district. When I asked about a book, a beautiful woman about my age had kindly helped me. She wasn't very friendly, but she knew a lot about lesser-known authors. "I've been there, it's a bit bigger and has a lot of books, it'd be sad if it disappeared." When I muttered this, Mike nodded. "It's sad to see physical stores disappear." "Well, extract the data for me." "Thanks." He said this, patting my shoulder and scratching his head as he returned to his desk. Scratching his head when he's upset is his habit. He probably doesn't want to talk about closing the store either. The decline in reading is significant, and with the rise of ebooks and the convenience of buying books online, bookstores are struggling everywhere. I sighed and immersed myself in extracting the data. A few days later, I was called by Mike. "Is it something difficult to say?" He was scratching his head with both hands. But as if making up his mind, he looked at me and said, "James, can you transfer to that store that's up for closure?" It was a bolt from the blue. I was so shocked I couldn't speak, and he scratched his head even more. "Sorry, it's just that it's the only store in that area, and it would be a shame to lose it." The head office suggested sending someone, and You came to mind. You said you'd be sad if the store closed, right? So I ended up suggesting you." He spoke to me in an apologetic tone. "Of course, you can decline. At this stage, I can handle it. But you were brought to the head office because of your sales record, right? I thought maybe the sales floor suits you better." I was stunned, listening to his words, but "I'm sorry. I know you just got a head office position. I'll try to keep your benefits the same." He apologized so intensely that I snapped out of it. "No, Mike, please stop. I'll go. When I said this, he looked bewildered. "But it's kind of like a demotion, you know? Demotion or not, it didn't matter. Leaving New York would be a bit sad, but this was a dream come true for me." "Mike, please proceed with this." "Thank you. I love working in sales." When I said this with a big smile, he looked confused. I wasn't lying. Mike has no reason to feel guilty. I aimed to work in a bookstore because I wanted to be surrounded by books. Being a bookstore clerk is my calling. Working at the head office has taught me a lot, but I still want to be on the floor handling books. While he looked puzzled, I joyfully expressed my gratitude for the chance to return to being a clerk. A few months later, after receiving the transfer order and getting a period for preparation, I finally stood in front of the regional branch, ready to work as a bookstore clerk again. It's still in the same rundown shopping district, with little foot traffic. As I pondered how to revitalize the store, I noticed a piece of paper on the ground. Picking it up, I saw it was a promotional flyer from the store. It explained the key points of a book they wanted to draw interest to. The flyer was for a romance novel I had read, with cute handwriting saying, "It'll move everyone, young and old, and packed with reviews." Yes. That part moved me too. As I nodded and read along with the flyer, I heard a voice from behind, may I help you? Turning around, I saw a woman with thick glasses glaring at me. The store opens at 10, but do you need something? Looking closely, wasn't she the clerk who helped me when I traveled here? I think she wore glasses back then too. Are you a clerk here? When I asked, she nodded. I'm starting here today. My name is James. Raising my voice a bit, I introduced myself, making her flinch a little. Ah, are you the one transferring from the head office? Saying this, she apologized. My deepest apologies. I'm Emily, the manager here, nice to meet you. Her polite greeting left me confused. She's the manager, and I'm just an employee. Why is she being so formal? As I pondered, she spoke hesitantly. We haven't met the targets set by the head office. I'm truly sorry. You've come all the way here because of that. Hearing this, I panicked. No. I came from the head office, but it's just a regular transfer. I'm not here in any senior position. She must have been under a lot of pressure from not meeting the head office targets. Amidst this, she was frightened by the arrival of someone transferred from the head office. She thought she'd be directly supervised, managed, and reprimanded. When I told her it was a complete misunderstanding, her eyes behind the glasses welled up with what seemed like relief. However, the head office had sent me here with the goal of boosting this store's sales. Let's work on this together. I smiled at her, but she responded with a cold, yes, looking forward to working with you, and went inside. Our initial interaction suggested a challenging road ahead for communication. A few days later, while working at the store, I observed many things. The first thing I noticed was the lack of energy. Emily, the manager, seemed constantly stressed from the head office pressure. As a result, she always seems on edge. Consequently, the part-time staff also lack enthusiasm. They try to avoid Emily as much as possible and interact with customers in a rather detached manner, likely out of fear of making mistakes. Moreover, there were very few customers. Given the lack of people in the shopping district, this was understandable, but it was my job to find a solution. I racked my brain. For now, I decided to tweak the promotional pop a bit. The pop I found on my first day had excellent content about the novel, with wonderful, relatable comments. However, only if you read it all. The small text was densely packed. While you could feel the creator's love for the book, reading all of it without prior interest would be tough. But I liked this pop. I felt not only the love but also the kindness of the person who made it. The card, softly painted in pink and carefully written, was charming. I slipped the pop into my pocket and started creating a more straightforward version. While setting up the new pop, I continued observing the store. Customers would read a bit and then leave, or they would glance around and say, I'll just look it up online, before walking out. There had to be a way to turn this around. I carefully observed customer behavior. One day, an older woman was browsing the children's book section, picking up and putting back various books. When I approached her, she was initially wary but eventually told me she was looking for something that might interest her grandson who didn't like reading. My eyes lit up. I love children's books too. They're easy to read, and I often read them lightly before bed when I'm tired from work, which helps me sleep well. After asking about her grandson's interests, I recommended 2 books. She bought both books and left with a smile, saying she'd bring her grandson next time. This could be a breakthrough. Excited by the customer's smile, I eagerly suggested to Emily. I think there are many people who want their kids or grandkids to read more. Can we enhance the children's book section a bit? She paused, thinking. Her lack of visible emotions often made her seem stern when she was silent. However, in the past few days, I realized that she wasn't angry but was simply reflecting on what was said. After a moment, she looked up. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. How about placing it near the entrance? Elated by her approval, I set up the section with the help of a part-timer. We managed to create a cute section and I went to report it to Emily, only to hear her distressed voice saying, "No way. Please wait. That's impossible on such short notice." It seemed she was on the phone with someone. I waited for the call to end and then cautiously opened the office door to find her eyes brimming with tears. I rushed in, fully opening the door. "What's wrong?" She quickly turned away, not wanting me to see her tears. "It's none of your business. Get back to work." She dismissed me, but I persisted. Was it from the head office? Did they say something? A target? It must have been a direct hit. Her shoulders shook as she explained, they've set an annual sales target. It's 3 times our current sales. If we don't achieve it within a year, they'll close us down. They want monthly progress reports, and if we're not performing well, they might close us before the year is up. She told me in a trembling voice. I had only been assigned here for less than a month. What was happening at the head office? However, even if I confronted Mike at the head office, their decision wouldn't change. So, show me the target. I see, there's no genre specified. In bookstores, it's common to have targets for specific genres, like increasing magazine sales. Here, if magazines had been specified, it would have been challenging. So, I felt a bit relieved. Thinking it over, I muttered, we might have a chance, making Emily turn around with a glimmer of hope. Really? Her eyes behind the glasses were wet. I patted my chest. Yes. Let's do this. Let's prove them wrong. When I said this, I thought I saw the corners of her mouth lift slightly. I love bookstores. Being surrounded by books filled with so many emotions. I don't want to lose this store. I don't want to lose it. I felt the same way. I heard that she was also 30 years old. Such a huge responsibility on the shoulders of a young woman. I wanted to lighten that burden, even if just a little. A fire was lit in my heart. I went to the newly created children's book corner at the storefront and started calling out to passers-by. I can recommend books that will make your kids love reading. Please lend me your ear. With that introduction, I began explaining the books for early elementary school students from the corner I just set up. It was early afternoon. Some women returning from lunch and elderly people coming back from shopping started to gather. As I was explaining, some customers asked the part-timer, "Where's that book he mentioned?" This set off a chain reaction, with many people picking up various books. When I couldn't keep up with the demand, I called for help, and Emily came out. She was surprised to see the crowd of customers but quickly started answering their questions politely. While I was explaining to other customers, I could naturally hear her explanation. Her pleasant voice discussing the children's detective series was precise and captivating. It was clear that she had thoroughly researched children's books as well. In just a few hours, we sold a considerable number of children's books, achieving the highest sales in recent times. It became clear that this demographic was responsive to children's book promotions. Next, the plan was to organize a reading event. And then, a book report contest. While talking to customers earlier, I learned that this area assigns book report homework during winter break. I shared this with Emily, discussing the strategy after a customer bought a fantasy children's book, saying it would be perfect for a book report. Can we distribute flyers to schools? I was thinking we could have a book report fair, with books categorized by genre and grade level. Not just the recommended books, but other interesting ones as well. When I suggested this, she added, how about including advice on how to write the reports? We could create chart-style guides to help them. We then discussed which books would be best. Since we both love books, the conversation was lively. Emily looked cute when she talked excitedly. I had a sudden thought. You would look cute without glasses. She suddenly stiffened. What did you just say? It's inappropriate to make such comments to a woman. Realizing that I had spoken my thoughts aloud, I was shocked. Apparently, what I had been thinking slipped out of my mouth. I hastily tried to make excuses, but she just went back to work. Oh, things were going so well. Regretting my slip of the tongue, I finished the rest of my work. 2 days later. During the 2 days Emily was off, I enhanced the reading corner. I created a space where parents and children could freely enjoy reading together. Starting today, I plan to propose having scheduled reading times where staff would read to children. I went to find Emily to suggest this, and was surprised. What? When I saw her, she wasn't wearing her glasses and was blushing. It's not because of what you said, James. I didn't switch to contacts because of you. It just so happened, really just a coincidence. I got a coupon. Her awkward explanation was too cute. I was surprised at how large her eyes actually were. The thick lenses of her glasses had made them look smaller. Cute. The word slipped out, making her turn bright red. Can't you control what comes out of your mouth? I don't usually blurt out my thoughts like this. As I struggled to explain, a part-timer arrived and started fussing over Emily's missing glasses, providing me with an escape. She was blushing and protesting, but I could see glimpses of a smile. The part-timer, surprised by her smile, continued the conversation. Once again, I accidentally spoke my mind. You should smile more. It creates a more approachable atmosphere. The part-timer's face turned pale, and I realized I had messed up again. But this time, Emily didn't get angry. Oh. I'm sorry. Was I unapproachable? Both the part-timer and I were taken aback. Although our conversation ended as the workday began, seeing Emily practicing smiling in front of the mirror filled my heart with a warm feeling. Something I kept to myself. 2 weeks later. With the winter break approaching, we decided to host the fair. It lasted 3 days. Our project, the Book Report Consultation Fair, spearheaded by Emily and me, kicked off. Thanks to the flyers we distributed to nearby schools and the social media announcements, many people gathered. People were crowding around the board I had made. It started with, "Do you like books?" and led to yes or no answers, ultimately recommending genres based on the responses. From there, they were guided to sections categorized by grade and genre. Emily stayed at the Book Report Writing Advice Corner, gently teaching the kids. In recent days, she had been practicing how to appear more approachable, not just with her smile but also her tone of voice. Her efforts paid off. As a group of curious children gathered around her. An elderly woman, with her grandchild in tow, mentioned she wanted to read but her eyes got tired. I recommended audiobooks, where a narrator reads the book aloud. While this doesn't contribute to the store's sales, I strongly encouraged her to please download from this site. It's our head office's site, along with a flyer. Hopefully, it would help the head office's sales. The 3-day fair, utilizing a long weekend, ended in great success. Inspired by customer conversations, I had several ideas for future fairs but needed a break for now. It had been incredibly busy. Taking a breather, I went to the back and found Emily staring at her computer. How was it? These past 3 days. It was exhausting, wasn't it? Casually asking, she suddenly approached and started shaking my hand vigorously. Completely confused, I saw her looking at me excitedly with a smile and saying, "Amazing, amazing." "James, who are you?" With a dumbfounded huh? I was pulled by the hand and led to her computer. Look at this sales. It was the sales figures for the 3 days of the fair. We had easily surpassed the monthly sales target set by the head office. I was astonished. There are so many parents and children struggling with book reports, I remarked. Emily enthusiastically patted my back. No, look at these numbers. Just 3 days. It's unbelievable. James, you're amazing. Despite her excitement, I couldn't fully grasp it. This success was a team effort, and we just happened to hit the mark with the book report theme. Although I had several ideas for future fairs, we needed to ensure people regularly visited the store to achieve our yearly goal. And I hadn't figured that out yet. When I mentioned this, she sighed and sat down. "You're so calm." I felt it too. When customers said we'll come back, it wasn't just polite talk. They genuinely meant it, she said. Emily, having interacted with many customers, could sense these things. Her intuition might be trustworthy. You're amazing. I would never have thought of the fair on my own. I was hesitant about the reading corner, wondering who would do the reading. But people were satisfied with my amateurish reading, she admitted. I couldn't help but protest. You're not an amateur. She laughed. She had smiled more in the past few days than I ever thought possible. I'm an amateur. I love books but hated reading textbooks aloud in school. No, you're a book lover and an expert. She looked surprised. I actually visited this bookstore once on a trip and asked about a somewhat obscure author. You explained it in detail. I thought you knew everything. I wasn't sure if it was her, but Emily confirmed it. Was it Tom Johnson? I jumped in surprise. Wait, you remember that? I had indeed asked about that author. It's rare to find his books in bookstores, so I was surprised to see them there. I love that author too. That's why I was so happy to be asked about him. It's amazing that we share the same favorite author. I took out the pop I had kept in my pocket. It's the one I found on my first day at this store. Ah. That. Seeing her expression, I was certain. You wrote this pop, didn't you, Emily? She nodded shyly. I know it's hard to read, but once I start writing, I can't stop. It's ironic that someone who teaches how to write book reports writes such messy texts. Seeing her dejected expression, I couldn't help but smile. I love it. It's full of affection for the book. I thought whoever wrote it must be a kind person. When I said this with a smile, she turned away. Sorry, it's not written by a kind person. Her comment made me laugh. What's so funny? You're kind and cute, just as I imagined from the pop. Ha! She looked down, flustered. Seeing her like this, my feelings naturally poured out. I want to marry someone who loves books like you. Emily, would you consider dating me with marriage in mind? The words came out naturally and honestly. Her eyes widened in surprise. On the first day, she had been a stern-looking woman with thick glasses, a stern face, and her semi-long hair tied back tightly, making her seem unapproachable. The Emily standing in front of me now had removed her glasses, her expressions were varied and her smile was adorable. She was flustered. I'm just a woman who spends her days off reading books. That's great. I want to read with you. Her face turned bright red. I'm not cute, and I'm plain. No, you're incredibly cute. Her face grew even redder. And I'm not straightforward. I couldn't help but laugh. What are you talking about? You're incredibly straightforward. When I suggested contacts, you came back from your day off wearing them. That's because. It was the first time a man said something like that to me. She covered her face with both hands. When you said I could be cute. I wanted to live up to that expectation. I couldn't hold back any longer and hugged her. In my arms, she said, will you continue to support me? Of course. I feel like we can do anything together. I imagined our future, wanting to read lots of books to our children if I married her. I dreamed of building a small house with a room filled with books. In a sunny room, on a comfortable carpet, Emily and I, along with our children, how many would there be? We would all read lots of books together. Of course, it's okay if the kids don't like books. Just listening to us reading to them would be enough. If we did that, they'd surely grow to love books. Dreaming of such a future, I hugged Emily even tighter.